60 years ago today, civil rights leader Medgar Evers was gunned down in front of his Mississippi home just a few feet away from his wife and 3 young children. Evers helped lead the fight to register black voters and boycott whites-only businesses in the deeply segregated state. After he was killed, his wife, Myrlie Evers, carried the baton for racial equality. She says she wanted to honor his legacy. In an exclusive interview, we met Mrs. Evers at the family's former home in Jackson, Mississippi. As we sit here in your house, what memories does it bring back for you? What was it like living here?
That's one heck of a question. I see love in this house that overrides
the fear,
hatred.
Myrlie Evers has been fighting against hatred all of her life, perhaps in its strongest form in the early 1960s, when her family was under constant threat because of her husband Medgar Evers' work in the civil rights movement.
I've had a number of threatening calls, people calling me saying that they were going to kill me, saying that they were going to blow my home up, and saying that I only had a few hours to live.
How were you able to live like that, knowing that at any day could be his last day?
Knowing that every day might be the last day was the force behind the deep love that Medgar and I had for each other and our children.
Did you ever question if he loved the movement more than the family? Did you ever ask him that? Or was that not a fair question?
Bet I did.
Oh.
What about us? You have me, your wife who loves you dearly, you have these 3 children, and Medgar would tell me that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. He told me at one time, either you are with me or you aren't. You make that decision.
And in the end, you decided, my decision is I'm going to stay with you.
My decision was, excuse my grammar, ain't gonna leave that man.
Medgar and Myrlie met when they were both attending Alcorn A&M College in 1950. They got married in 1951, and 3 years later they moved to Jackson, Mississippi, where Medgar would become the state's first NAACP field secretary. It was that position that ultimately made him a target.
Medgar Evers, 37 years old, killed from ambush on Wednesday, June 12, 1963. A single bullet ended his life.
There was the love of my life and my children's father. I recall vividly our children saying, crying, screaming, "Daddy, get up, Daddy, get up." And of course, there were my screams and trying to help him and remembering that Medgar and I had talked about that scene so many times.
During that time, you seemed to be so gracious. Is that what you were really feeling at the time?
What a beautiful front that was. Because beneath it, there was this determination to make them pay.
But here was your husband preaching against hatred. Did you find yourself feeling hatred yourself in this moment?
As negative as it is, that's what kept me going.
Who was your hatred directed to or at?
I would have to say it was initially directed to everyone whose skin color was not the same as mine. Might be ugly, but that's the way I felt. I was determined to see whomever was responsible for my husband's death would pay. That ugly period of hating actually saved me. It saved me in the sense that I could retreat in my room or my bed someplace and plan destruction. That seemed to relieve me of suicide.
Really? You thought about taking your own life and leaving your children?
But I couldn't because of my children. Then what would they do?
Myrlie and Medgar's children were 9, 8, and 3 years old when their father was killed. We asked their daughter, Rena, to join us in their old dining room to watch an interview that her mother gave to CBS News just one day after she lost her husband.
I would hate to think that the sacrifice that he made while he was living and also by his death would go in vain. I hope that by his death that this will help all of us, not only in Jackson, in Mississippi, or in the United States, but throughout the world.
Boy.
Wow.
I know.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen that? What do you think when you see that video of yourself and you see that young woman at 30?
I had difficulty watching them.
Did you?
Yes.
Because?
Because I see something in that woman that I didn't realize was there.
Which was?
A strength. Also see determination.
Just by the eloquence of your words and by the poignancy to address the world and not just Mississippi, and to hear these words come back again today.
You use the phrase a lot, that is life that he didn't die in vain. That was very important to you.
Very important.
Yeah.
To this day. It's important.
In the year that followed Medgar Evers' murder, Mrs. Evers would sit through 2 trials for the man who shot him. Both of those trials ended in hung juries. The jurors were all white men. But in 1994, a 3rd trial with new evidence and witness testimony would look and end differently. When he was found guilty, what did that guilty verdict mean to you?
It meant that I was free.
All I want to do is say, yay, Medgar, yay, yay, yay.
Free at last.
Amid the fight for justice for Medgar, Myrlie took up his fight for equality.
Because I loved him. I did not want him forgotten. That was my first motivation. The second was to bring positive change if I possibly could.
She was also building a life with her children in California. You went back to school, you ran for Congress. What were you looking for back then? What did you want?
Honestly,
Honestly.
vengeance.
Vengeance.
By doing well. By achieving.
Mrs. Evers took on leadership roles in corporate America. She was the first Black woman to be named commissioner of the board of the Los Angeles Department of Public Works. And she married again. It was her second husband, Walter Williams, who back in 1995 encouraged her to run for chairperson of the NAACP.
Almost everyone told me you won't win. The men won't allow it. And I remember having a big smile on my face and said, it's all I need to know.
Didn't you take the attitude of watch me?
That's right.
Watch me. Williams, who had been battling cancer, died days after she won by a single vote. Over the next few years, she restored the embattled group status as a leading civil rights organization in the country
and its financial standing.
Being black and female didn't seem to deter you, Mrs. Evers, in anything that you
No,
did.
no, it didn't. It motivated me. Tell me that I can't do something. I'll kill myself trying to do that, you know?
This past week, the Evers were honored with special events in Jackson, including a celebration for Myrlie Evers and a gala marking 60 years since the world lost her husband.
And I ask you to please always keep Medgar Evers' memory in your minds and in your hearts.
Is there anything else you would like to accomplish, either personally or professionally?
Well, that's a good question. On a selfish note, I would be thankful for good health and memory.
Yes, yes, yes.
I hope I never lose the will to fight for what I believe in.
She says that she sees things today that she still wants to fight. But guys, I walked out of that house, number one, wishing they would adopt me. I was in such awe of her. She's so eloquent, she's so solid, she's still so compassionate, and still feels so firm in her beliefs and what she wants for this country and the people in this country. I walked out of there, I can't even explain how proud I felt. Number one, she's 90 years old, and to admit that, yes, she had hatred. You know, because that's not something people say.
Of course.
To admit that she had that and that she had to work through it, which she has certainly done.
Well done by you and our CBS team, but just a credit to her for her honesty and thoughtfulness before she responded to every single question.
Yeah, she was very thoughtful.
Very thoughtful. But vengeance, when that is a motivating factor for someone, that usually ends in pain for everybody involved.
Vengeance by doing well.
By doing well and achieving.
Nate, there are still bullet holes in the wall. She was telling me when they were younger, the kids, they used to have rehearsals. If their gunshots drop to the floor, run and get in the bathtub, which they did that night.
Kids old enough to know what was happening.
Yes.
On the one hand, not understand it, but also to know as your father.